Welcome to Cynthia Dill Live. Joining me today, I'm very excited, is Michael Hussey. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Nice to be back. Good to see you. Thank you, Cynthia.
I'm excited about this new format. It's a YouTube show and very interested to hear from our early fans what you think of it. So please, before you forget, subscribe and leave a comment about any topic you want to cover, any guests you'd like to invite. I'd love to hear from you. And Michael Hussey, you wear a lot of hats, entrepreneur, father, husband, school building advisory committee, former member, but probably most importantly, you're like a tribal leader here in Cape Elizabeth. And by that, I mean you are an administrator of the
Oh,
Friends of Cape Elizabeth Facebook page. So before we talk about the real topic, which is what the school bond means for athletic fields, I do want to briefly see if you're willing to comment on the latest kerfuffle around sign stealing and what you know about it, because it's been the topic of conversation on your Facebook page.
the political sign stealing.
Yes.
Well, Cape Voters is responsible for these vote no signs, and David Andrews, who was on the SBAC, who is also running for town council, has been keeping a very close eye on signs, and kept noticing in certain locations that you'd put it up and the next day it was gone, put it up the next day it was gone. And so he found out a way to track that and identified a resident here in town who was responsible for at least some of the sign stealing. And that's been discussed ad nauseum on the on the Friends of Cape Elizabeth Facebook page. I mean,
It's a caper.
It's a caper. It's an adult. It's hardly surprising. I don't know. I'm new to this local politics scene, and people take it seriously, and I understand why they take it seriously. But my gosh, we shouldn't be acting like children. We're all adults. We're all entitled to different opinions, and I
Well, I
don't
love
agree with everything that anyone that's running. I have my own views where I diverge and where I agree. So I just can't imagine wanting to steal a sign. It seems so juvenile and shameful.
Well, let's unpack it a little bit because there's a lot of layers there. There's the actual
Mhm.
sign stealing itself, which I think is, as old as throwing eggs, at Halloween, and I agree that it's
Okay.
childlike. But then there's the outing of the alleged stealer, right? There was
Hmm. Hmm.
discussion on whether the name should be discussed, which I'm in the camp of course, if there was a summons issued. But then I think what's really interesting is just the ingenuity on the part of the detectives tracking down the guilty
Yes.
party. I mean, I mean, maybe that, do you think that those skills, did you say it was the candidate Andrews or Hughes?
Andrews, but he was very frustrated with all the sign stealing, um, and basically placed a tracker inside one of the signs, and lo and behold, before long it was gone, and um, the the person who had taken it was none the wiser. As far as
That's got to be so humiliating.
I think it's probably humiliating, but I mean, it's a shameful act, and they deserve to, I think they deserve to suffer, at least in the court of public opinion. I don't know the person at all. Um, I feel bad for them in some ways, but I just can't believe someone would do that. And more important, I think there needs to be a deterrent. People should just grow up and stop acting like this. And if it takes a little bit of policing, um, so be it, I guess. So.
The lawyer in me is very interested in the event that this um, defendant is going to fight this thing. I'd be so curious to see how this evidence would get in, as far as
Right.
just as a legal question. Because do you know anything about this software? Like, so what? You stick a little device in the sign, and then it beeps, or how does it?
Yeah, it's just one of those iPhone tags, or those iPod tags, or whatever those little circles are, and it doesn't track like around, but it'll ping off of other Apple devices and and locate it whenever it's moved, basically. So um, people use
Well,
them to
you have
track their kids, like put it into a backpack so you know that they're safely at school, or you put it on your key chain so you know if you've lost your keys, you can find them, things of that nature. So
my
anyway, they're
glasses.
small and exactly. So
Do you have an
anyway,
opinion? Do
that's
you have an opinion about whether the person's name should be revealed on a community Facebook page?
um I think if they're found guilty, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of
absolutely.
public record. I don't see why
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So talk to me just and we're gonna get to the athletic fields and the school bond, but also talk to me a little bit about what it's like being administrator of one of these Facebook pages. I mean, we really do have essentially 2 tribes now in Cape Elizabeth to a certain extent. We've got the pod people, right? And then we've got the friends. And I know that there's a lot of people who play both sides. But what's it like from your perspective being administrator of a Facebook page in a town like this that is so hotly divided on some very, very important issues? Does it take up a lot of your time?
Not a lot of my time. There's a few other people that are administrating and approving people who are want to join it, and you know, very little policing actually happens or moderation happens. So um, what I mostly do is I like to find interesting stories that aren't being reported on or shared, and I like to share those. So the time that I spend, which is admittedly very probably minutes per week, but I like to find stories where Cape Elizabeth's in the news, or there's another Facebook post somewhere else that's public, or another Facebook page with some interesting or important news, and just bring it in. And then one thing that I also did more recently was, and I thought it was interesting, I took every single op-ed from the Cape Courier, most
Mm,
recent edition. Most of them were endorsing candidates, taking specific positions um, for both, you know, all sides, if you want to call it that, and just wanted to share that and give people a forum to comment on those. And I thought we created a platform for some interesting discussion that I don't think you're necessarily going to see on the others. I can't really comment on the Cape Pod. Um, I don't know. I don't think,
are you
you know, I don't think
traumatized by it?
social media is not, look, and my day job, I have a social uh, data and insights company, basically a market research company that leverages social media. And I know firsthand, for dozen years of experience in this industry, that a social media audience does not represent normal people or the average person. So what people can go on and see, or, you know, a certain type of person that is more interested in being heard or trying to be convincing. And there's it's not your average person that gets the bulk of the airtime on particularly on these sort of Facebook pages. And so um I think and I didn't create the Friends of Cape Elizabeth, but just trying to make that more of a normal place where anyone can come in and get information. Most people aren't ever going to participate, and that's totally fine. But you know, this town is you know, full of incredible people.
Yeah,
Um,
it's quite a hub of,
so I don't
I
want to think
do.
about tribes. I really don't. I don't think of it in that way personally. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I want to personally, though, thank the Friends of the Cape, I guess, what is it? Friends of Cape Elizabeth Facebook page for
Yes,
allowing this show to be on it, posted.
of
I've heard
course.
from fans they really enjoy
Yes,
the dialogue, the engagement. So thank you very much.
a lot
I
of
do.
interesting guests, a lot of perspectives you wouldn't necessarily hear or be aware of. I really liked your interview with the lumbery owner. That was
Michael
eye
Friedland.
opening. Michael
Yes, I
Friedland.
hope to. That reminds me before I forget, I hope to, in the near future, have on, I would love to have Donna Episcopo from the Cookie Jar. She's taken away with a family issue and has a lot going on, but I definitely want to talk about the Cookie Jar. Our local career coach is going to join the show, and also the candidates for town council, at least the ones who have joined the show in the past, David Andrews, David Hughes, Tim Reiniger, have all agreed to do another show. So stay tuned. I'd love to get the other candidates. But
I
now
hope you
let's
could get
talk.
the other candidates. I
I
really hope you can
know.
get the other candidates.
I don't understand why it's incredibly frustrating that
It-
that that they won't come on a local forum just to answer basic questions. Like the question I really want to ask of Elizabeth Skyfreeze, because I
mhm,
was thinking of voting for her, is what are you going to do if the bond doesn't pass and you're elected
right.
to the town council? What do you see as alternatives? But we can't get these questions answered. But let's talk now about the
Can I
issue.
comment on that real quick?
Absolutely.
Like she seems like a very capable administrator, capable, um, but she would benefit from answering those questions. And I'm not calling you Fox News. You are not Fox News, but if you saw Kamala Harris this week going on Fox News, that was incredibly good for her,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
And I do a
so
better job
taking
than Bret
challenging
Baier.
questions, and you, I sure hope you, I know you would. So that was a great thing, and ultimately, I think it helped her a lot. And so again, I don't think this is exactly the same thing, but taking challenging questions can only help, I think.
Yeah, and
You
my
know,
questions normally are to actually get answers. I mean, to inform and so let's
yeah.
now inform our audience. I'm going to play the devil's advocate. I'm going to try about this
Okay.
school bond in Cape Elizabeth and what it will mean for athletic fields. And just briefly, if you would,
hmm
for people who might just be catching up, just give the quick thumbnail sketch of the issue.
Okay. I want to preface this by saying an athletic field in and of itself, I don't think is a great reason to vote yes or no on the bond. But I think the problem, which I'll go over in a second, with this athletic field is emblematic of greater problems with shutting down the SBAC
The
and
School Building Advisory
the school
Committee.
building advisory committee and things we were highly attuned to in the nearly year and a half that we were working, through this, and the fact that we were never consulted once all summer. I think we could have helped avoid some of these issues, but there was zero outreach. And anyway, again, the athletic field is one issue, but I did want to set the record straight because I think some people just didn't understand what I was talking about. And what I'm talking about is we currently have what's called a multi-purpose field, and I'm a soccer coach, a youth soccer coach. Uh, Probably one of the things that gives me the most joy. I'd rather be spending my time doing that than worrying about this stuff. However, that
And the audience
where
should just know briefly that you have
yeah,
5 girls.
I
That's a
do.
very important fact.
Not all of them are athletic, but it's fine. So, but I enjoy coaching, and I'm a big advocate for youth sports, and I love what Cape Hoops is doing in advocating for um, ample outdoor basketball courts, safe basketball courts. In any case, where they are proposing to build the new school is essentially on top of this all-purpose field, which is where the middle school plays soccer and lacrosse, and it's a full regulation size field. It barely fits in, but it does fit a full regulation size field, which is typically 330 to 340 feet long. Okay. And so one of the criticisms that I had of the school board option versus option B was that you were getting rid of significant amount of ball fields, and there was no plan to replace them. Not at Gullcrest, not anywhere. And I and I and so the designers Harriman came up with a new design as part of the school board option that we're ultimately voting on in November. That basically replaced that field, the multi-purpose field, in inside where the basically over where the in the middle of the current campus. If I can show you this, just um,
Yeah.
for perspective, and I don't know if anyone can see this. I hope, but this is the middle school today, and this is the elementary school. This all goes away, okay, except for the 1938 building. So this would all go away, and then here is where you would place the new soccer field. Okay, it's very hard to see. And I'm happy to reach out, if anyone wants to see this in the comments or after, just reach out to me. I can send you these pictures.
Yeah,
Here's the prop.
I'll try to
Yeah,
post the pictures in the comments, and also, and we'll try to make those available in other ways.
yeah.
But
So
essentially what you're saying is that that the new proposal, if you vote yes on
it's
the school bond in Cape Elizabeth
yes,
for the
there
school
will be
bond,
a new
it would
soccer
be,
field,
yeah, and
but it's far too short. It's like 50 feet too short, maybe even more, because not only is it too short, even if you built it, it's going to run into, you're going to have at the back end of the field, you're going to run into the elementary school, which is clearly a safety issue. So it's much wider, but it's much shorter. So it's almost like a square versus a normal soccer field rectangle. And so again, it's the math just doesn't add up, and it would be, even if you squeeze one in there, it wouldn't even be safe enough because you can't play next to a building. Point is, maybe there's a better option, but if the SBAC had been retained throughout what the expected life, which is through the referendum, we would have addressed that. We would have immediately identified that as a major problem, and we could have worked with the designers to maybe find something else. And
okay, a
so,
couple of questions. I have a couple of
yeah.
questions. When in the timeline was this new configuration of using that, essentially what is the middle school now, which would be removed, the newer part of the middle school, which would be removed as part of the project,
Mhm.
and the new field there, when was that done by Harriman?
So
Like, was it
that
after
I mean, like July, after some of the criticisms that
of the middle ground itself?
the
Like, it
middle
came
ground.
after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was sort of in response to, hey, look, you destroying ball fields that are used constantly. At least find a way on site or off site, preferably on site, to replace them. And so they, to their credit, came up with that idea, but I don't think they spoke to or researched what a proper field and dimensions actually are.
What
So
does
it
it do?
simply isn't, it is not a like for like replacement at all.
What does the fact that the field may be non-regulation do for student sports? Like, does it
Well,
limit, can you play your soccer
it would
games
be
there?
fine for elementary school. It would be
Mhm.
fine for elementary school. It's very, it's much shorter, but it is wider. So you could probably fit two smaller, like first, second grade type, third grade type sized fields, in that proposed spot. But you can't host a proper seventh grade, eighth grade. My daughter's on the soccer team. She's in seventh grade. You couldn't host it there. You couldn't actually host a soccer match on a field that short. We were
Okay,
just in a
so
tournament in Falmouth that was probably about 20 feet shorter than it should have been. Not 50 feet, but about 20 feet. And even that, when you're playing 11v11, when you're playing 11 players on either side, it's just too small and it doesn't work and it's not safe.
well,
So
also,
anyway, yep,
I
go ahead.
think the point for a lot of people who maybe, they don't have kids in school, but they're looking at their pocketbooks, and they're looking at the signs and the information that says if they vote yes for the new schools, it's gonna be a tax increase of 12.5.7%. But
Mhm.
this, unless we're going to give up middle school soccer, which I doubt we would, and lacrosse, that means we're going to have to build a new field. And the idea, I guess, is to build another one at Goldcrest to the tune of about 2 million. So, I mean, isn't one of the
Yeah.
reasons for calling into question this field issue is because it distorts the true cost of the bond? Am I wrong about that?
No, I think you're right about that. And look, worst case scenario, yes, build it at Gulcrest or I don't know, Lions Field. I don't even know where else, but you got to find this. You got to have a place for these kids to play. I mean, this is Cape Elizabeth, and soccer is a big deal here.
Yeah.
It's a
And
big
then we have
deal,
to get the kids there.
and then you got to get them there. It should be on the campus. Like, there's no reason. And this is kind of comes back to why I supported option B. And option B could have gone in so many different directions. The real point of option B was to preserve the campus, to sort of consolidate the campus, to build up multi-story buildings, restore green space, create new outdoor learning, new outdoor recreational areas rather than have to go through all these hoops because
Well,
it's a
what
beautiful
would
campus.
option B do to this field that we're talking about right now, which I call the middle school
Nothing,
soccer field? Okay.
nothing. It would be exactly the same.
Well, now talk to me about the basketball hoop because I walk
Okay.
around this campus all the time. That basketball hoop, and I'm talking about the cage-like basketball hoop
Yeah.
that's on
Yeah.
the driveway as you enter
Yeah.
the
Which
school
is very
campus, you go off to
popular.
the right. It's so
Yeah.
popular. It's used all the time. If I vote yes and the school bond passes, what happens to that? And if I vote no and option B somehow is enacted, what would happen to the basketball court?
Well, there's a few things that are going on here. So one, to their credit, to the credit of Cape Hoops, I believe, and to the credit of Harriman, at least in the initial design, that basketball court was gone. There was no replacement. So they found a place next to the baseball field in the school board proposal that the November school bond where they can replace that. I think I didn't look at the measurements, but it looked, you know, adequate enough for an outdoor space. And also, Cape Hoops is looking at other spots, such as next to the library, and I hope they can get that built. I know the town council supports that. So
But can
as
I
far as
interrupt you for a
basketball,
second?
go ahead, go ahead.
Can I
Yep, go
interrupt
ahead.
you for 1 second? I think there's confusion though about there's 2 issues about the basketball courts, right? There's the middle
Yes.
school basketball court that currently exists that
Yep.
may be removed if the school bond passes or
That will
if
be removed.
right.
Yes.
But then the
Yes.
other there's other basketball courts, smaller ones that used to be
Yes.
on the other side of the schools near the library. And Cape Hoops has approached the town about doing additional courts in that area. Is that right?
Well, there actually no, in Fort Williams they replaced the basketball court with pickleball court, and so
Right.
that needs to be replaced somewhere in town. And one of the proposed sites that the town council unanimously supports is next to the library.
Okay.
So
Well, there
I don't
used
know.
to be
I don't
these
think
little
that's a done
mini
deal. Oh, there
th
were.
yeah, there were these little mini basketball, courts there that were fun for the really little kids, and I think
Oh,
they went
okay.
away, and
Okay.
so I think my thought was like, "Oh, they're gonna put another, a regular size in that area." So this athletic question is
Hmm.
one that there's some confusion around. Um, I guess
Look, I think it's comes down to if the SBAC had stayed together, that doesn't mean the school board had to accept option B, but there could have been a discussion. Maybe we would have decided to push back 6 months to a year the referendum. But my gosh, there's so much they tried to cram together in a few weeks that they didn't understand about this project, about this property, because we lived it for well over a year, and this is just one example. And so I don't know what else is in there that's been rushed or what have you, but it's just one example that I wish for the proposal's sake they had retained at least our knowledge, and we would have happily helped address these issues.
Well, I think the SBAC members, I guess, who voted in the majority, you being one of them, Larry Benoit,
Hmm.
you certainly have legitimate basis for feeling somewhat resentful for putting in so much time and energy and then basically being cut off at the knees at the last minute. But for people who can't really appreciate that from the personal perspective and just like the process issue, uh, is there really an alternative now that, if you vote no for the school bond, do you think that there is
Oh
the
yeah.
capacity of this town to do something
Oh,
that
absolutely. Absolutely, there is, and there was so much support um, from a lot of people who voted no last time to do something big. Okay, but the reason is they trusted what the school board and the town council put together. They had trust that we were doing our best. Larry Benoit, just incredible job. That 12.5% that you see on the signs, that if not for Larry, that would have actually probably been 17% because he pushed back against bond council. He pushed back and did his own research, spoke to other administrations, found better bond instruments that we brought back, that he brought back. So I always hear trust the experts, trust the experts. Well, yeah, we do trust them, but we trust but verify.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of really good people on that committee with a lot of unique sets of knowledge. We had an architect, a school building architect. We had a businessman. We had David Andrews managing multi-million-dollar construction projects his entire career.
A lot
Just
of
to get rid
bandwidth.
of that, just to get rid of that, after all that work and all that knowledge accumulation, um, what a just didn't make any sense,
So
and it
it
still
seems
doesn't.
like it's a natural pivot. I did want to briefly find out what's going to happen to the middle school gym because I love the middle school gym. So I want you to
Yeah,
briefly answer that question, but then I want to talk a little bit about the election. So under
yeah.
if you haven't voted yet in Cape Elizabeth and you're going into the polls and you vote yes on the school bond, what is it, $94.7 million?
Mhm.
What's it going to do for the middle school gym?
Oh, that's gone. I mean, there'll be a new gym built, but that is an excellent gym.
Why do you say
I
that?
I coach basketball. I coached 12-year-old basketball last year. I'm coaching my 9. She not sorry. I have 5 daughters. I keep forgetting their age. U10 girls basketball. We'll be using that gym. That gym is in constant use. It's full size. It's a full high school size gym. Um,
It's so
and
comfortable.
it's a good gym. It's a
Yeah.
really good gym. So anyway, that's going to be destroyed, and I just think that's too bad. I think it's really too bad.
It seems to me that the school bond issue on the ballot is really the decisive issue, and it's going to drive a lot of people to the polls. It's also going to help people in their choice of candidate for town council. The candidates are split down the middle on this issue. Do you, what's your,
Well,
is your
I thought
choice
that
of candidate being driven for the large part about how they're approaching the school bond issue? Is that what's driving you in your choice of candidates for town council?
I'm not sure if that's the most. I mean, it's an important issue. I haven't given that a lot of thought, Cynthia. Um, but I think that that is again, it's emblematic of where your priorities are and who do you want to represent. And um, so I don't want to. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to speak for other voters, but I think for many voters that is going to be the deciding issue. And I don't think this is going to pass. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a similar outcome to last time, and a similar outcome to every other um, project that's of that in that price range across Maine, which has been decisively rejected. And we're going to be back at hopefully not at the complete drawing board, but we're going to be relying on the next school board and the next town council to figure out what to do. So that is, excuse me, for me, yes, personally, it's probably the most important issue, especially given all the personal investment in this. Um, but
And
yeah,
5 kids in the school.
yeah, I have 5 kids in the schools. So.
So, given that you know how this all unfolded, it's still unfolding, but we're coming close to the end of this next vote. If you had to
Mhm.
go back and do things all over again, what do you think we did wrong in terms of
One
not?
thing we did wrong. One thing we did wrong, and I didn't fully grasp it at first, but what I think we should have done, and I think the SBAC was a really brilliant move by the school board and the town council, because we earned a lot of trust within the community, within particularly people who previously had voted no and really wanted to vote yes on a project. I think one of the foundational hires was this owner's representative, um, and then obviously the designers.
Who was the
What
owner?
what
Who is who was the owner's
Turner,
representative?
it's a company called Turner Townsend Hearing. We had a lot of problems with them throughout. We had to basically request a new point person halfway through because it just wasn't working. Um,
What did you understand their job to be, and what did it end up turning out to actually be?
to keep the designers in check, basically to be. So what I think, if we could go back in time, what should have happened is the school board. There should have been an SBAC, but the school board and the town council should have been more involved across the board in the project, because at the end of the day, they were the ones who could say yay or nay. So we could have got more buy-in. But what should have happened is the designers should have been selected by the school board, and the owner's rep should have been signed, selected by, and responsible to the town council, who is responsible for setting budgets. And right now, what we have is a cheerleader. I'm sorry to say, and that's how I see it anyway, because they're out there saying that if you don't do this, we're going to have 7% inflation for the foreseeable future in construction costs, when it's simply not even true. Like inflation in 2024 is like 1.1% for construction, and so it's like, why they're not? Their job isn't to be the marketer of this project. Their job
Right.
is to hold the line and make sure that the numbers that are out there are true and honest and trustworthy. And I think if we had structured it better, where they sort of reported to the town council and the designers do the best job for the school board, do what the school board wants, because they have final say again. Like, I think that structure could have worked. And I just don't see that happening at all right now.
Do you have any idea how much taxpayers spent on this owner's rep, who is essentially, I guess, what he drank the Kool-Aid?
I don't know how many months they've been paid, but I think it's about $30,000 a month. It's a lot of money.
Wow. I mean, the money spent on this project it's staggering.
I think it's
It's
close to $1 billion again, just like last time.
and do you think that this process explains why there's only 3 candidates for 3 open slots on the school board?
I don't know what explains that, honestly. Um, Look, the school board, I like a lot of those people. I don't know all of them, but the ones I do, like, they're good people. I really like, um, I really like those. I like the people that I know there. And I don't know. I just, maybe, in the beginning, you talked about this tribal mentality. I do think that in some respects, they're afraid of disappointing their base.
The
In this
pod
case,
people?
I don't know if it's the pod people. There's a lot of people on the pod that just shake their heads, and they'll tell me in private conversation, "Oh, there's crazy stuff over there." But what I'm talking about is sort of the people. What's this group, Advancing Cape? That's sort of like become the PR firm for the school project. Um,
Elizabeth Bierman and Nicole
yeah,
Boucher, former town
that's not
councilor. They're the
that's
names
not
associated.
they are not representative of the town, and I don't know.
Well, they've
It's,
been quiet. The campaign seems to have been sort of quiet. Maybe they just exclude me. I don't know. But
here's
there's been such a drumbeat about this new schools, and
I
now I'm not
thought that
hearing a lot.
I thought that the candidate. I watched a good bit of that candidates forum, and um, I don't want to name names, but it felt like the people that were out there talking, knocking on doors, and doing their, people who support building this, support this referendum question. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I got a sense that they realize that it's probably not going to pass. That there's just too many people upset with it. So, regardless of how the town council election turns out, we need to do something. We need to do something big, and I hope we can figure out how to come together rather than just point fingers and all that. Maybe I'm a little guilty of doing some of that. Maybe I'm ranting a little bit much on this call, but um,
Not at all.
there's great solutions. There's a number of ways to go about this. It doesn't have to be option B as presented. I mean, we could build on top. We could demolish that terrible garage where they have the music program today in the middle school, and there's plenty of room, and it would be under 35, $40 million. You could have a brand new sixth, seventh, eighth grade wing, completely new, connected to the rest of the services, existing footprint. I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm saying there's so many other ways to go about this to get new schools or new wings of this middle school without doing the whole thing, without destroying a perfectly functional
Yeah.
middle school basketball gym. There's just
Just total
we're
upheaval of the entire campus as we
we
know it.
have
It's
to
like,
come back together and recognize that option B wasn't like this is the best and only thing, but it's a more of a philosophy of let's do this more gradually. Let's limit the current tax increase to maybe 7 or 8%, which is more palatable to many
And
more
still
people.
very high, and still very,
Still
very
very high
high.
in the wake of, especially in the wake of this revaluation
Yeah.
situation. So let's
Well,
try to find a way there, but we could still do a ton with it. And then maybe, and then we just have to be patient. And it's not fun being patient, but in 10 years, we can do, my kids won't benefit from it, but it is about doing it in a way that everyone in this town or most people in this town can get behind. And I felt we were so close with the SBAC, and I think we can get back there. And I think even candidates that want this to pass, this new middle school to pass, I think at least one or two of them get the sense that it's probably not going to pass.
dead on
And
arrival.
dead on arrival. Yeah.
I hope that whoever's elected actually gets the work done, rolls up their sleeves, and does the work to come up with a plan that can be put out to voters pretty quickly instead of offloading it to some new citizen group or hiring some consultant or taking another survey. Like, I feel like we have all the information we need. Like, if it
Yeah.
is maybe some, you know, I don't know, mosaic of a little bit of option B with a little bit of middle ground. I'm not sure. I personally would just
Well,
make a motion. If I was elected, I would make a motion to put option B out to the voters immediately. Do
maybe,
it.
maybe. The other thing though, worth considering is there's Governor Mills, again, to her credit, um, just issued an executive order a couple weeks ago saying we have to revamp the way that the state funds. There's just too many schools in this state that need major investments and not enough are getting access to the funds. So there's a concerted push underway, and we're going to have the results of this study within the next 8 to 9 months. And it coincides with our application, which was submitted in April to apply for state funding, which we didn't do in the previous 2 cycles as well.
That's one
So
positive outcome of the
we're
process.
gonna know a lot about our potential ability to receive significant state funding in less than a year. And I know that's not great, but if this passes, it's not like all hope is lost for a new school. Definitely not all hope is lost.
So before I let you go, since we are in voting season, I mean, the
Mhm.
last day for requesting an absentee ballot in Cape Elizabeth is October 31st.
Yeah.
The election's coming up. It's going to be a huge turnout.
Yeah.
Do you think that the national politics will have any impact on what's happening in Cape Elizabeth as a community around this school issue and the election to the town council and that sort of thing?
You know what? I don't think it's going to take, I'm pretty sure that Cape Elizabeth is not going to have a majority voting for Donald Trump. So, but I
But
don't see,
there's been a
yeah,
very interesting phenomena happening in Cape Elizabeth, though, and that is that at the state and national level, overwhelmingly blue. Democratic,
yes,
candidates are elected for the most part. However, at the local level, there's been
exactly.
independents and Republicans, and for the first time in a couple of decades, the Wall Street Journal has reported that more people are identifying as Republican than Democrats, but I just can't believe it
I,
given that the leader of the party is Trump. So it's such a weird election year, and
it is a
anything
very
goes.
weird election year, but there's a lot of, look, a lot of this, again, I think it's the, the louder voices sort of creating these tribes, so to speak. But most people who aren't speaking up, not most, many people who aren't really speaking up sort of feel weird about how a lot of these things have gone. And every locality has their own sort of issues where there was overreach, particularly during COVID, right? There was a lot of weird, rapidly implemented policy changes at local levels. And so there's just a natural cycle of things as I see it, and there is pushback. And so that doesn't make you necessarily like a dyed in the wool Republican. In this town, you have just a lot of people with a lot of common sense. And so, whether it's the issue of the lumbery or the new thing with, or this,
Cookie
not
jar.
new, but the cookie jar issue, it's like basic fairness, right? Most people are basically fair and good, and they're not thinking in terms of those partisan labels. And
Well,
I
when it
think
comes to
Cape
Jonathan
Elizabeth,
Sarbach, he's running for town council. He was a Republican. And
Okay.
then
I don't know him at
yeah,
all.
he was a
Yep.
Republican.
Yep.
The family is a great family. They
Yep.
go to the same church. But Jonathan Sarbach was a Republican, and then he became the district attorney and turned
Hmm.
independent. And now suddenly
Okay.
he's a champion of the Cape Elizabeth Democrats. But what I find is so interesting is that he, as the chair of the planning board, now is running for town council, and he's
Hmm.
taking these steps. I think that are so anti-business. I think that should come out in the election. I don't think it's really talked about, but a lot of the things that drive people to the polls are pocketbook issues.
Yes.
And I think this
Yeah.
cookie jar is a sleeper. I think if
A
word gets
sleeper.
out that Sarbach's shutting down the cookie
I
jar.
don't fully understand it, to be clear, but I'll give you. So my understanding is that there's a desire from the town planners to remove their parking spaces and replace it with a sidewalk similar to what happens like over by DePietros, just up the road. And I understand, there's benefits to that, but my gosh, that would obviously be terrible for the cookie jar. My parents have owned and operated a flower shop in downtown Alfred, Maine for over 40 years. And it's very similar. It's very close to the road, but there's this area where cars are allowed to park. The town wouldn't allow it if they ever sold the if they
Right.
sold that property, it would have to. There's basically the rules are grandfathered in through common sense, right?
Yeah.
They invested all these years in this business, and this is the way it is. And so my parents wouldn't, I'm sure the town, they've tried different ways to get them to change the parking situation, and they've made minor changes here and there, but I think it's very similar to what I see is happening here. So like, let them be. Like, that's an institution in town. People love that place, and it's not hurting people if there's a 50-foot stretch without a sidewalk. I don't see it.
Well, especially because the planning board, it's not like they don't have agency. It's not like they can't address the problem. The problem is that this neighbor created a conflict. The conflict opened up the site plan. Apparently, the site plan gets rid of the grandfathered clause. I mean, there's ways around it, but
There
I
sure
think
are.
but what happens is that the instead of presenting like, okay, we have this problem, let's provide a
Let's
solution.
solve it. Let's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like
Let's
big
roll up our
government.
sleeves and figure it out.
Well, Michael Hussey, anything else you want to share with our fledgling show and its early fans about what we can expect from your group that is working against passage of Cape Elizabeth School Bond? And is it fair to say that you're supporting the candidates Reiniger, Andrews, and Hughes, or is that? I mean,
Yes,
main.
I am. Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And is it because primarily their position and their views on the school bond, or is there anything else?
Yep. Primarily that issue that to me is for me personally that's a big deal and but I think it's related to just good sense of management and common sense. And
Now,
that's
if people want more information from the group that you're associated with that's working on the No campaign, Cape Voters, is where can they go for more information? Is it capevoters.com?
CapeVoters.com. Yep.
All right. Well, Michael Hussey, thanks so much for joining the show. Hope to have you
Thank you
back.
so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.